Welcome. I'm Suzanne Fricke, owner of Gallery Hozho inside Hotel Chaco. We're talking today with ceramic artist Robert King. You've had a very unusual path toward your ceramic practice. Can you tell us how you got there?
You bet. So actually my professional background is that I'm a family medicine physician. So I spent a large part of the first kind of half of my life so far training and learning how to do medicine. So I took that back to my tribe, the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and got into ceramics while practicing there for my tribe.
Did you have a mentor or someone who was working with you?
I don't. I'm technically self-taught, but that's not to say that I didn't have lots of folks that I stood on their shoulders, read lots of books, watched lots of videos, had lots of conversations. But yeah, self-taught.
And what about the Choctaw ceramic practice appealed to you?
So, as far as Choctaw ceramics are concerned, there's not a whole lot of examples of what that looked like prior to forced relocation. We do have some examples, and obviously they have things like water motifs because we were located on the Mississippi River. But not a ton is known really about traditional Choctaw ceramics practice, which is really exciting for me and really freeing, because then I get to bring my full self without any sort of boundaries to what I'm doing in the field.
Can you tell us a bit about historically the materials used by Choctaw ceramicists?
Sure. So like most indigenous cultures, they sourced the materials that they used for their pottery from the surrounding landscape. A lot of it was earthenware clay. Some of it was used for a season or two, and then it broke, or they threw it away and made more. And so that idea of sourcing the materials for pottery is something that means a lot to me, and something that I incorporate into my own ceramics practice.
Can you tell me a bit about the quality of the clay? Does it require tempering? Does it create a thin well vessel?
Start that over. Give me clarification.
Yeah, I'm curious about the quality of the clay. So I know that in New Mexico, clays from different areas have very different qualities. Some fire very thin and very white down at like Laguna and Acoma. Some are micaceous, like up in Taos. Some fire thick, some fire thin. Historically, what are the qualities of Choctaw ceramics? Do they require temper? Do they fire natural colors?
Yeah, so it would depend on exactly where the clay comes from. A lot of this would have been sort of riverbed clay. It'd be high in iron. It would fire to sort of a terracotta or brown color in the traditional primitive firings that were done. Most of it could use some temper, and they would use seashells and things like that.
Oh, really? So you'd crush up the seashells that you would find and use those. That must have given it a very interesting texture.
Yeah, it was kind of rough, which I think maybe there's something that lives inside me. You can see that my pottery is quite rough and sort of.
Yeah, you do seem. One way I would definitely describe your work is textural. You create really unusual textures. We've got 3 examples here of your work. Do you want to walk us through? Let's just talk about the outside, since we're talking about texture, since these 3 have very different approaches.
Sure. Like those indigenous peoples that have come before me, I source a lot of the materials that I use in my pottery from the landscape. So maybe to start with this piece here, this is a stoneware clay body with some quote-unquote wild clay, although I dislike that term.
And by wild clay, you mean something you sourced from the earth?
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
Exactly. Clay.
And that's what creates that beautiful white.
So that would be the clay body, and then the white on top is another clay that is on my property. I live in Galisteo, New Mexico, outside Santa Fe, and so that's a very rare white clay that you find naturally in the wild. There's a vein that's about this big, and once that's gone, it's gone. So I'm the steward of that vein. And then on the surface, to create this texture, I've got a high iron and manganese rock that I grind by hand in an old school cornmeal grinder. And then I sort of reapply it and fire it, and it turns back into stone. So what was stone is turned to powder and then back into stone again.
It almost looks lunar in that texture.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's it's a lot of fun sort of recreating nature, reshaping nature, taking it down, deconstructing it, and reconstructing it in a way that expresses myself.
And what about this pot? It's I don't know if the camera can pick this up, but there's almost a reflective quality to the slip on the outside, if that is a slip.
Yeah, it is a slip. So this is a terra sigillata on the outside, which is just a kind of a really fine clay slip. This is fired in an open fire. So the smoke from the combustibles that I put in the fire, whether that's banana peels or sawdust or eggshells or lilac seeds or tobacco or whatever, create this really interesting sort of reflective, almost silvery surface to the pot. So it truly is a collaboration with the flame.
And I can almost see in this one lines from having been thrown on a wheel.
Yeah, threw that one on a wheel completely, and of course I can't have a pot too perfect, so I had to make sure that the lip had a little imperfection.
And then the texture on the third one, it's rough like the first one, but it's a very different texture. It almost feels like a sandpaper. It looks like a sandpaper, like a rough, but very fine.
Yeah, it's another rock that occurs locally there where I live on the studio property, and so that's actually a combination of several different types of native clay slips and some native rocks that are there on the property that I, again, grind by hand and apply. And of course, these are the natural colors that they fire to.
So you prefer, rather than doing painted wares, because I'm intrigued by how you have a tattoo on your hand of a pot that's painted very precisely, yet your own work seems to embody the natural color and texture of the clays and the materials that you work with.
Yeah, well, I'm in love with lots of different types of traditional Pueblo pottery. I'm incredibly inspired by that, particularly the forms. While I don't always incorporate those forms into my work, I love those forms. And so, yes, it's the surface decoration. Yes, it's the skill that was used in that, but also it's just the beautiful forms that that they came up with.
Can you talk a little bit about shapes?
Yeah, so it's important for me that these be vessels. And, there's a part of me that doesn't quite understand why, and I don't want to look at that too squarely. I think it has something to do with the potential to be functional, the potential to hold something, even if they're only holding air, they could hold something. And again, it's sort of a nod to the cultures, particularly the indigenous cultures that came before me, that made these vessels for pure function. So.
But yet I'm intrigued by the fact that some of your pots are more spherical, more regular, and then sometimes you allow them to be a bit more jagged, a little bit more asymmetrical. Is that something you start off with as an intention?
So most of my pieces start on the wheel. So they start out, anyone that has sort of, gained skill on the wheel can make something really beautifully, perfectly symmetric and looks like a machine made it. I don't love that so much. Sometimes I do it, but I prefer to start a piece out on the wheel and then coil build from there to introduce some organic feeling to it. And it also is important that the pot, when you coil build it, the pot tends to almost build itself on some level. And so it's, again, letting the clay sort of collaborate with me a little bit and asking, what is it that you want to be?
And how do you feel your background in medicine, which is there's something very external, like you're supporting your community, and then this practice also seems to have that, revisiting the past and incorporating it. Do you see a connection in those two?
Yeah, it's all in the gumbo there, it's rattled around in the noggin. It's strange how it comes out, that sort of connection to human anatomy and human experience. I'm very fascinated by human psyche, whether that's my own or patients I've treated or whatever. And I find that a lot of that comes out in the work, both in the overall feeling of the work, or even sometimes in the forms that I take in the work.
That's interesting how you're comparing a pot to a body, because historically we describe pots as having feet, belly, shoulders, necks. We describe them in terms of human anatomy.
This is a vessel, that's a vessel, and this is a vessel, yes.
Yes, I can see that. Yeah. And where are you taking now that you're here and you're working in ceramics full time in New Mexico, where are you seeing your work going?
Hard to say. I'm still very, very much into doing these sort of abstract vessels that I'm making now. I'm hoping to go larger. Some of that's dictated by kiln size and some things that I'm hopefully working toward. You know, I almost want to be kind of like not purposeful as far as where it's going. I want to follow it rather than lead it on some level. So I think it'll be just as big of a surprise to me as anyone else. But yeah, I think just continued exploration of myself and what this human journey is.
Well, that seems like a perfect place to end. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Robert, for coming in, and thank you for sharing your work with us. You can see these pots and more works in Gallery Hozho. Okay, my green light is, yep, my light was not on. Give it a, there. All right. That was just the first, you know, that was our first pancake. To, you know, can never keep that first pancake.
It's all good. It's all good.
You can say I'm very high tech.